Hi, I'd like to go over some very interesting aspects of one of the least understood, I would think also least respected, and most maligned astrological sign in the zodiac, and that is the sign of Scorpio. I'd like to introduce you to the Scorpio sun and the Scorpio moon. As you can see how they're dressed, they're covered in this sort of steampunkish, matrixy, goth, want to be seen but don't want to be seen. They're wearing sunglasses, so you can't really see what's going on with their eyes, so they're observing everything. Scorpios are a very interesting sign for very many reasons. One is they are a fixed water sign, which seems weird because when you think of what a scorpion is like, it is an insect with a hard outer shell, more like an arachnid, actually. And it doesn't really have much to do with water, mostly found in desert areas, of course, except for the ones found in the jungles. So they are very protective. They are very solitary. They like to hide in the dark. They don't really like to be seen. And they will actually, if they get backed up into a corner, they will actually kill themselves rather than allowing something else to kill them. So there's a very strong instinctual drive and protection in the Scorpio system. It's very, as I said, it's a fixed water sign. So when you think of fixed water, the closest thing that comes to fixed water is ice. And it's funny right now because here in Santa Fe, we're experiencing a really beautiful snowstorm. And it reminds me a lot of the scorpionic tendencies of needing to go within and witness things. When I think of the psalm that is about, yea, though I go through the valley of death, I shall fear no evil. That is going through the scorpionic process. It's the dark night of the soul. It's facing these things that are really hard for us as human beings. We don't really like change. Scorpio as a fixed sign does really not like change. It wants to be left alone. It wants to be doing things as it wants to be doing. It's funny when it comes to astrology, when you're in a room of people and you ask people for their birth information, the one sign that typically will not give their birth information is usually a Scorpio. Hey, I see you guys out there. Scorpio doesn't really want to have its privates shared, but the truth is, its point is to be more vulnerable. The goal for Scorpio is actually to come out of the shadows and share the intensity of what it's feeling with other people. I really appreciate this image of the sacred phoenix because the goal with the phoenix is to be reborn of its own ashes. It self immolates, it burns itself down, bringing it down to its nothingness and then is reborn again. And that is actually one of the highest aspirations of the Scorpio process. So, getting neutral, getting to the point of acceptance, going through on a very regular basis, depending on how your chart is set up, sometimes almost even on a daily basis, you are going to be dealing with the process of life and death. So, many of you are very adept at helping people in the process of birth, as in being a doula or maybe being a nurse or a doctor, even, as well as being someone who is a death doula or someone who helps people pass away on the other side. So these are very important passageways. There's a liminal aspect to the scorpionic process. Within families, within society, Scorpio gets much maligned because we're seen as intense, we're seen as dramatic. But the truth is, we're funneling a lot of energy, we're receiving a lot of energy from the people around us. And when we're not in group situations, people will come up to us and they will share. They will share very deeply about things that have gone in their life, deep losses, deep betrayals, deeply challenging experiences in their life, seeking someone to share it with. And at the end, they'll always say, "Oh, I've never shared that with anyone." For those of you who are Scorpios out there, what is your resonance with that? How many times have you heard that? I think I'd be a billionaire, actually, if I had $1 for every time someone said that to me. And I would imagine that you have too. My name is Michael Bartlett, Master Metaphysical Astrologer, and I really appreciate the deep dive into subjects. I have a Scorpio moon. So I appreciate finding those deeper truths and sharing those with people and finding out what the reality is. You can find out more about me at my website, coremichael.com. I also do appointments helping people to work with their scorpionic processes as well as their maverick abilities and esoteric or soul-centered processes that go on. I really appreciate working with people on a much deeper level. So if you're interested, please feel free to reach out to me by going through my website or emailing me at michael@coremichael.com. And if you're liking what I'm offering here, I hope you hit the share with your friends. I hope you hit the and comment. What is your scorpionic experience? How do you feel and see and experience the Scorpio life, death, rebirth process? Because that's really what, interestingly enough, happens with people who have any planets in Scorpio. As one of my posts recently said, one of my favorite quotes from my friend Aaron Sullivan is Scorpio has to get sick and tired of itself. It has to get over all that drama. It has to get to the neutral point so that it can actually move on. Because the thing is that because it is a sign about death and rebirth, it's a circle, it's a cycle, and it's about learning and accepting how things go all around the cycle and not necessarily getting stuck at any one point. With it being, again, a fixed sign, it wants to get stuck at certain points along the pathway. But if you're lucky enough to have other planets accessing your scorpionic planets that are giving them some life, or they're in an angular house, meaning they're with your ascendant, IC, descendant, or midheaven, you're going to find that those scorpionic processes are going to be highly aspected in your life and processed. These are the children in our families who share very deep things at the dining room table, which sometimes is quite bothersome to conservative and religious parents because they don't understand where the kid is feeling these things and sensing these things. But the truth is, there is a deep feeling and sensate nature about the scorpionic process. It's like being in a room and absorbing the energy of other people and then expressing it. Scorpio also responds to whatever it's being met with. So if you come at them with aggressiveness, they are ruled by the planet Mars for the traditional planet. And in the modern astrology, they are ruled by Pluto. So they can actually bring things down. In fact, what I like to say with Scorpio is that we will forgive, but we do not necessarily forget. So when you do something, when you wrong a Scorpio, they're going to remember that. And after a certain number of wrongs that you've done them, whatever that might be, there's finally going to be basically, I like to think of an hourglass in which there's kind of grains of sand going down. And all of a sudden, there's just that one final grain of sand. And it's usually really something simple, but it has to do with disrespect. It has to do with not honoring the deep process and deep feeling nature of a Scorpio. It might be you're gaslighting them. And then they just say, hey, you know what? I'm done. And they just walk away very neutrally, like Neo at the end of the Matrix, the first Matrix, where the bullets are coming out of me, just simply says no. And they just stop in the air. There's not a reaction to it. And that's the point that Scorpio needs to get to. How many of you out there have gone through your scorpionic processes and dealt with Pluto or Mars going through Scorpio, or just have your other planets in Scorpio, like your sun or moon? It's going to be a very interesting process to see how your life unfolds. You seek the deeper truths of things. You don't want to sit and talk to someone about the weather. You don't want to sit and talk to someone about their job and that there's something really juicy going on at their job, or they do a really juicy job. I hope you enjoy what I'm offering today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, please hit share, and please feel free to book an appointment with me. I really love working with people and helping them understand their scorpionic processes. I am not ever going to feel overwhelmed or that you're too intense. That's another thing when it comes to Scorpio. Another key word people like to use with Scorpio is intense. And if people use the word intense with you, you might want to allow them to maybe move out to an outer ring of your friend circle. You might not want to have them in your inner ring, because the other thing with Scorpio is they really appreciate and need loyalty. Across from the sign of Scorpio is the sign of Taurus, which creates and needs a sense of loyalty and stability. And so Scorpio needs that in its relationship. Scorpio needs those friends that can call up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and that friend's going to answer and say, do you want me to bring my shovel? Because they need to have friends who they know who are going to be dependable. They're going to be loyal. They're going to be there through thick and thin without any question. And they know that the integrity is there, because at the deepest part of the day, as long as Scorpio is operating from a place of integrity, the depths to which a Scorpio can go are pretty fantastic. Unfortunately, as we know, there are also examples of people, as I talk about in my book on astrological Mavericks, such as Ted Bundy and Richard Carpenter, who have a very different way of expressing their scorpionic processes. Ted Bundy was a serial killer. I think an aspect of that is his Venus and Mercury were retrograde, when he was born down there in the sign of Scorpio. And so he did not really quite understand the right way to talk with women and be with women. So I think that's enough for today, enough for the deep dive. I will be doing a live video on the Mavericks of Scorpio, including just those two I just mentioned. I hope you'll tune in. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Have a wonderful day and enjoy your weather wherever you are. Take care. Bye bye.